Everybody's sitting out. What are you here for then?
I was asked to come for the like contest.
Oh, yeah, awesome, good.
Because I have dogs at home that need to be fed, you know, so my husband's working late.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Hey, residents. I'm good.
We all have to have something.
It's just so ridiculous. It's funny. Oh yeah. It was like over here and I pushed it.
You fixed it yourself?
Yeah. Which is not what you're supposed to do. And then I went to the emergency room and they're like, yeah, it's broken. And they're like, you know, it's major broken. I'm like, just needs broken. Then I went falling Friday and then Bruce that hurt. And the doctor's name was just there. He wasn't there. How can you be mad at a guy named Dick? Yeah, Dr. Dinkle. I really have myself.
We've used dongles for connecting equipment before.
And he was.
John's not here tonight.
Is he here?
No, he is not here either.
I know, we kind of meeting on the council, y'all, we met with him, and then on Friday, he was here from and he sent an email saying he came in that night, but it was on the list, you know, like his wife was in the flood. Goodness. Show him, I'm not gonna hand him all that stuff.
Hello, Ashley. How are you today?
Great, how are you?
Good. Hi, Lou.
Yeah.
you, by the way.
Happy New Year, Bob. I don't know
Thank
if
you.
since the New Year.
Yes.
Happy New Year. It's supposed to snow.
Okay, great.
I like saying it sounds good.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Yeah, I look up at my first here, so I have to put it on the floor. Hi, Deborah. How are you?
How are you?
Did you just come to see what we're doing tonight?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I was invited by Kathy.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
good.
good.
Good. Hopefully we'll move in on.
Yeah, Shauna, take that spread out. You can share that chair if you have a purse, you need to put it in that chair.
No, I got stuff to sprawl.
Hi, Bill. How are you? You doing okay?
Yeah, I'm doing good.
Is your knee doing well? Is your knee doing well?
Working.
Yeah. How are you?
Can I sit with you?
Did we get any more information about our trip to Raleigh? People, under parents do that. They turned in their wishes.
Never. Tomorrow.
Fridays? What did you do?
Did you want to add one? That's all.
Oh, yeah. Right here. We always move ahead of schedule.
Did you?
You know where to park, right? Yeah, it's a big deal. Yeah.
So you come in, the brain is just
We were just talking about that, and I feel all day.
That's just crazy. Like this? Scroll down. This one gets rid of this one. Recesses.
Welcome, everybody. I'd like to draw the January 28th Stallings Town Council meeting, call it to order. First up on the agenda tonight is communication by Kathy Icy.
Building and town council, the police department. We ask for protection. We also ask a special blessing on our Congress and our Senate, that there be peace in our government, and put your hand on all the lawmakers. All the
Next up is public comment. Sign up with comments. All right. Next up, agenda approval. I know we have a couple of things we would like to change the agenda. Anybody want to go first?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add an item to discuss silver line into the town of Stallings. And you do have information at your desk with regards to that.
We take a vote on the agenda additions, don't we? Oh, let's. 7.
And we also add an item to the agenda to approve extension of
D. Any other changes to the agenda?
Following changes, the adding of 7A with the resolution about fire and the approval of manager.
All in favor? Unanimous. Ashley, you be ready by this early? I noticed we're running a little bit ahead of schedule.
We are. Real quick, do I have any of the Holiday Home Contest winners here? Okay. All right, tonight we have a couple of things from the Parks and Recreation Department and Committee. And first up, you'll notice we had an agenda item for a library in Stallings Park. The Little Library in Stallings Park. This is a partnership with one of our community organizations, Randall Riley. In April of 2018, the Parks and Recreation Committee was presented with an opportunity to partner with an action group from Randall Riley and Promising Pages to provide a little library in Stallings Park. Randall Riley's mission statement is to propel people to their best selves, and their proposal for the project identified ways that together we could help the citizens of Stallings. Research in social stratification and mobility shows that academically, children growing up in homes without books are on average 3 years behind their counterparts who grew up in homes with books. And one of the most successful ways to improve the reading achievement of children is to increase their access to books, especially at home. But 61% of low-income families do not have an age-appropriate book selection for their children at home. So through Little Free Libraries, millions of books are exchanged every year, profoundly increasing access to books for readers of all ages and backgrounds. And after months of planning, and more than a few weather delays, The little library was installed in Stallings Park in November. On behalf of the Parks and Recreation Committee, I want to present a couple of our representatives here from Randall Riley with a token of our appreciation for their efforts to make reading more accessible to the children in Stallings through the Little Library Project. And here's a picture of the group that did the installation. And this Little Free Library now looks a little different. It has a plaque on it because it's registered with the Free Library database. So if you go to the Little Free Library database, you can actually search in a geographical area and ours will show up. The ladies here restock this regularly, and it works like your other neighborhood ones you've seen. You take a book, you can leave a book. That way everybody can kind of get fresh content as you go around. And just a picture of the library from a different view. You can see it's right next to our playgrounds there. It's in between the two playgrounds in the park. It's been a prime location. I've seen a lot of use out of it. I don't know how many times you guys have been here to restock. Okay, so they've already filled it twice since November. And I actually found a book in there that I liked. So, but I would like to ask you guys to come up and present you with a little token here. This is a thank you from the Town of Stallings Parks and Recreation Department for the installation of our little library. Well, thank you.
Just thank you for the opportunity. It was a great team building experience and a small way of giving back to the community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Ashley, can I get a picture of you three real quick?
Sure. Are there guidelines for what kind of books you can put in?
No, you can put adult and children, but we've just been keeping it to children. So we have like toddler books all the way through young adult reading, and we have put in like Spanish books as well. So,
Have you found that they do come back?
the books that we place, not always.
Okay, that's fine. I'm just
But we have a great partnership with Promising Pages. They retrieve thousands and thousands of books, and they have a lot of opportunities within the lower income schools. So they've partnered with us, and they said they will continue to give us books. We go and we sort books, age appropriate books there on a regular basis.
okay. Well, I'm a teacher, and I'm teaching a middle grade, and I have a lot of lower.
Okay.
So let me go through my books and see what I might
Awesome.
have.
We would love
Awesome.
it.
Awesome.
We would absolutely love it.
Thank you all very much.
Yes,
Can I get
thank you.
Can I get you in the picture too?
You.
I
Who, me? Yeah, you.
No, with you.
How many books will the container hold?
It depends on the size.
Yeah. All right, look here, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 1, 2, 3. All right.
Thank you very much.
It's really hard to get into.
Okay, thank you.
Alright. Next up, from the Parks and Recreation Department, we have a recap of our home holiday decorating contest from 2018. This year, we advertised via social media, we put it out on the website, we also listed on Nextdoor, and we had participants from all over Stallings. And when we looked through some of our photos, of course, the night we went to judge, it was storming. So we actually had to drive around a couple of times to catch people. Some of the houses, their lights are set to go off in heavy rain. So we, knock on the door and say, hey, it's not raining out. If you turn your lights on, we'll take a picture. But we had a lot of entries this year. Some new houses that didn't participate in years past, so that was really good for us to see that we're branching out, getting a wide variety of people. We also had some neat things here. The picture on the left, the snowflakes you see on the garage, they actually kind of twirled. And they had a star in the tree, you can see above the deer there, that also had the twinkle lights that were set to programmed music. So there were some creative entries out there this year. We had a couple honorable mentions. Most of you are probably familiar with this house in Callenwood. They take donations that they give to the Children's Hospital here in town. This was our winner last year, and they have a huge, you can't fit it all in one picture. So you kind of have to take like a panoramic camera view of it to get everything in.
It's sort of the Griswold house.
Yeah, I've heard it called the Griswold house before. Then we also had the Rainer family here, had an excellent, I took this picture and showed the front door theme here because it was really classic Christmas. But as the picture, when you're further out, there were a lot more lights and things that you could see there too. Again, weather, it's a little tough to get photos in the evening. And then in Stonewood, our third place entry was the Squires family. It was kind of a backyard animal kind of theme. They had deer at a watering pond there. They had some huskies. They had a few little bears. They had penguins sliding down. So they had a whole animal theme going on there. And this was one of the houses we definitely had trouble getting photos of because of the rain. And then second place, the Shad family from Shanawara. Consistently solid entry here. I think last year was like a sweet candy kind of theme. This year the door there is just phenomenal. Really easy to see from the street, great use of lights. And our first place winner was the Sellers family in Fairhaven. The theme here is the Grinch, as you can see. In the window, if you look down on the bottom left, they're cut out characters there from the Grinch, and then all of the characters on the front lawn were handmade. So it was a lot of work. In the upper window there, you see the movie that's showing. If it wasn't a stormy night, they showed that on their garage door. So they had a projector out there for that. But this year we had a few more entries than the year past, and we're excited to continue this going forward. So I wanted to take a minute and recognize our contest winners. And I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Kathy Sellers.
So there we go. Yeah, first place winner here. All right. We posted this on Facebook when we announced the winner, and it got hundreds of comments, hundreds of compliments. It was shared, I think, 210 times from our Facebook page, or probably from you sharing it on your Facebook page. So if you don't mind, you come up and we have an award to you for the Holiday Home Decorating Contest, first place.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Should we move up?
Yeah, let's go. One, two, three. 1, 2, 3. All right, great job.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Just want to make sure I didn't miss anyone else. Do we have any of the other contestants here? The Shads are here. All right. So, Mr. and Ms. Shad, let's get you up here for a picture as well. And I'll just scroll back to that photos that we took here.
Okay.
Hello there.
Good, you? Okay.
One, two,
Thank you very much.
All right, and lastly, we want to keep this as an annual event. We're working toward a new public outreach portion of Parks and Recreation that the committee will be presenting in the next couple of months. So I just wanted to take a moment and get your feedback. If you have any feedback, then you can feel free to give it to me now, or if you'd like to email me or contact me directly, that's acceptable to you.
Betty? I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I like
Like,
it.
good work out.
Well, I have to give a lot of credit to my predecessors because I didn't start the event. And it was well put together when I got here, so I would just continue the tradition of it.
We appreciate that. I think the community really enjoys it, and certainly seeing the results of what they put out there is very nice. Thank you.
Just keep it. Just keep it. Don't get rid of it.
All right, I'll put this back up.
You still got time on your allocation if you'd like to use it.
I like to keep things brief.
Yeah. Thank you, Ashley.
Yes, thank you. 35 minutes ahead. This is fabulous. I know. On task.
Next up, we would have Lynn, our town planner, talk about the Chestnut Small Area Plan, and Dimitri Batches. Welcome again.
Thank you
All
again.
right, thank you.
Can't wait to see what you guys do next year.
Yes. Pressure.
I'm already thinking.
I made my first little cutout this past weekend.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay. While they're exiting, we're gonna exit as well. You guys can take care of
Thank you so
that. Thank you
much.
so much.
Thank you very much.
Well, I'm actually here to just kind of introduce this item. Dimitri's going to be the one to actually present it. But as you're all aware, we've been working on the Chestnut Small Area Plan since, I guess earlier middle of the summer, we started working on the plan. We came to you guys around Thanksgiving, a little bit before Thanksgiving, just to present a draft, to get some direction from you all that you liked the way the plan was going. So tonight, we're here to present you with the final plan, and Dimitri is going to walk you through that. And what we're looking for this evening is your approval and adoption of this. There's a second item that goes along with this particular plan. All of the other small area plans you're aware of, when we adopted those, we did that simultaneously with the update of our development ordinance. So we changed our zoning map at the same time. So we're looking to do a very small zoning map amendment as part of this small area plan approval as well, but that will be the next item. So I'm just going to turn it over to Dimitri and let him explain to you guys.
Thank you, Lynn. Hey, everybody. Good to see everyone again. This is number 5 of 6 plans, so we've gotten a lot done. I'm not going to get into how impressive this is for a town of any size, but this is a really impressive feat, what you all are undertaking. In terms of the planning, you can see number 5 down here at the very end of a very long string of small area plans which have been strategically selected in order to show the opportunities that exist in your community for infill.
Will you do that screen, please?
You want
Because
this
it
one?
makes it very challenging for Linda to
Can
see.
you all see it?
Okay. Thank you.
No worries, yeah. Last time I was, it was this screen I needed to talk to, now we're going to talk to this screen.
Linda can't see it.
Yeah, so no, that's fine. So as we were saying, the long string, right? So each one of these was selected for a different reason, to show the possible mix and opportunities that existed based on whatever infrastructure was running through. For example, the future Monroe Bypass, Highway 74, Idlewild Road, Monroe Road, and here we have at number 5 an interesting location because of its positioning within the community, the end here of this long string, and also its proximity to an amazing amenity at a very large park, which you guys didn't have to pay for at all. It's a fantastic asset. So the opportunity here is to do a couple of things. First, to create a gateway, the entry into Stallings from 485, and also to serve as the portal for everyone in Stallings and this wonderful greenway system that Destination by Design has been crafting and knitting together through your community to serve as the portal into Colonel Francis Beatty Park. So those are the 2 major moves that needed to happen. In order to do that, we selected an area of properties that gave us enough room around the existing intersection to show what could happen. Now, the interesting thing about this particular site is most of it's already developed. And on top of that, you have one site that already has a permitted development on it that just hasn't been built yet. That's the Harris Teeter site. So we had the plans for that. And simultaneously to us doing that, the largest chunks of property that are undeveloped are in this area right here, just to the east of the power lines, right above the, to the north of the school. There's an area of undeveloped property. The only other large tract of undeveloped property outside of the Harris Teeter, which is this site, right, is what we're now calling the Pappas property. The substation is in the middle of that. While we were doing this, the Pappas Development Group out of Charlotte became interested in that parcel. They were probably interested in it a long time before, but this sort of spurred them along to begin to show plans and discuss with us what was going on. And that, I think, is the biggest lesson from this small area planning effort that you guys have now been undertaking for almost 2 years. I don't want you to think that this has been some sort of pie-in-the-sky effort that you've just gotten a lot of pretty pictures. The proof of why this is critical is that you will now see a plan submitted to you by a very reputable, very capable developer out of Charlotte that is responsible for some of the best projects in the city. Right? They were attracted here for a number of reasons, one of which was also your planning regime. I've spoken to the group, and they've actually confirmed that. They have used this process to modify their plans and submit within the small area plan. That's fantastic. You don't have to battle them. They came willingly. They looked at what you were doing. They said, this is great. Let us help you get this done. So their master plan, this is not it, but it looks very similar to this, and probably some of you have already seen it. They'll be submitting their plan concurrent to this after this is approved. That's fantastic. That's probably the envy of just about, if Charlotte could do this, there'd be a lot of more relaxed people in the city of Charlotte. So this has gone a long way. So we have incorporated what we felt was the best outcome for this site, and they have then taken that in turn and crafted a development which is very similar to that. So that's wonderful. What we're showing here is the roundabout, and because the area of development really is just kind of hugging the road, you wanted to make sure that it is stuff that is comparable to and leverages the uses that are planned. You got the Harris Teeter, which is here. They had a development layout that's somewhat similar to this, but we have revised it and tweaked it a little bit to make it more appropriate based on what the Pappas property development may look like and what we have encouraged to occur along this strip. As the gateway coming into town at the roundabout, what we want to do is enclose this area with development so that the gateway is actually buildings. You arrive at a place and you know you're at a place because there's buildings at the place. It's not just, a sign. It's not just a green space or bollards or flags or whatever landscape. It's stuff, right? That's a true gateway. So you arrive here and we've got other apartment developments right across the street in this thin sliver between the power easement and the road. There's currently right there a self-storage facility. Self-storage, if done right, is a fantastic use. So if it comes up in other places, we don't knock it, especially the ones that are built these days. They're 2 to 3 stories. They actually, in some communities now, have a ground floor office component that is mixed use. They'll put a cafe in the ground floor. They'll put their management office in the ground floor. It'll look like an office building. The great thing about mini storage is it's a land bank. Right? It sits there until the value of the property in and around that community is such that it's no longer valuable. And what they can do now with the way they design it is they can take out the core. The mini storage is like a unit you put in between, because right now the circulation is on the outside. It looks like a building. They just demolish the core and it can become apartments, it can become office, it can become anything. So this is thinking ahead 15, 20 years. So that's great. So we actually showed it doubling in size. So they might be happy, right? It could end up being anything, but we're encouraging it to continue and to thrive and to eventually grow and maybe eventually even change into something else. We have a neighborhood that we just, in addition to the multifamily, which is not too much, the Pappas property here and this multifamily site here will yield some units, but not a lot. Most of the area is residential, single family, so we decided to keep that same theme going. The area where this existing creek now runs just to the north of the school site, has a beautiful slope to it, and we felt that it would be great to go ahead and add more single-family housing. That could be a wonderful neighborhood. We're trying to do it similar to the layout like Latta Park in Charlotte, where the development itself focuses on the greenway. You know, in Latta Park, the creek is a park, a linear park. There's playgrounds in it, you walk through it. The houses face it. Here it'll be even more dramatic because the ground slopes upwards. It's up on a hill. So it'll look really nice. That was really it. In terms of the urban layout, the uses that you see here, the yellows are the residential multifamily, the red is commercial retail, the blue is office, the brown is the mini storage expansion. A lot of this is existing, right? This is already existing. There's 3 restaurants up here. This site plan is very similar to what you've already approved for this area here. This, when you see it, will look very similar to what you're showing here. The only other area that we've sort of extrapolated, because no one has come to us with any plans and we haven't had any discussions with anybody, is the property directly across the street and then running down to basically the mini storage area. We're anticipating moving the gas station a little bit further south, if a gas station still stays in this area. You know, gas stations these days tend to not want to be at the intersection of busy intersections because you can't get in and out as easy. They tend to move further down, especially if the DOT puts the roundabout here, which is the roundabout here. The intersection is going to be difficult to have a gas station right at the corner. So we're just showing you move. Streets and greenways and uses all in the plan, so you can see what we're describing. In the illustrative version, what we wanted to show is that Chestnut, as it comes in also, is the spine for our multimodal greenway. Right now it's coming to the intersection, which is the roundabout. Now roundabouts are great for traffic flow, keeping continuity in the capacity of a thoroughfare. However, they're terrible for pedestrians because cars don't stop. And if you're going to put a signal at a traffic circle, there's really no reason to build a traffic circle. So, but that's fine that the traffic circle is there. It's not a big problem. So what we're doing is we're bringing the greenway down to the intersection and then back up. And the fantastic thing is that Pappas Properties has also decided to take that greenway and move it through their development on the periphery, back into the back, which they're going to leave undeveloped, and then into Colonel Francis Beatty Park from behind. So eventually, when you all cobble this together and it's funded, you'll be able to run an entire length of Stallings on foot, running, on a bike, cycling. How many miles? About 6 miles, right?
What, the whole greenway system?
The whole greenway.
30.
Yeah, but the length from one end to the other, not the whole.
Yeah.
6 miles.
6 or 7.
6 miles from one end to the other, and you can end at a fantastic park that you can spend a dime for. That's really impressive. That's a package that you can sell and market yourselves as a town to potential businesses and to residents, right? That's a reason to move here. That's pretty impressive. Destination by Design did a bird's eye just to show you we extruded some of the buildings just to show what that might look like. You can see how we're looking to confine that space to make it a place as you enter. So it becomes immediately a gateway. You wouldn't even have to have a sign there. Eventually people would just know that this is Stallings with the traffic circle and the structures along it. And the beautiful part of the plan that the Pappas Properties is developing is that it really anchors this in quite nicely. More images, that's the school over there. I wish we had a 3D topo of it, where we'll be able to see how the slope upwards here and the creek at the bottom is going to make for quite a beautiful neighborhood. Hopefully it becomes a neighborhood. It could become a lot of things, but it's zoned residential. I think if it's designed appropriately, it could be quite a pretty stunning neighborhood. One more view. This is the Harris Teeter, and that's the exact site that the Harris Teeter plan that you've already approved. That's where it is. What we've done is we've slightly modified their out parcels and the inline shops, which they have hugging the parking lot, to make it, if you remember their old plan, it was a little bit more haphazard because they didn't anticipate connecting to anything. We showed a connection, and Pappas Properties has also honored that connection and is going to have one into that development. So it benefits both. So we had to align it differently. So when the Harris Teeter project comes back to you for approvals, they're going to have to adhere to the plan that you've approved here. So they're going to have to adjust their side building just a little bit. One more image. And a close-up. The greenway coming down to the light, which should be controlled, and then back up again. And then a rendering showing what that would look like. So you see it's a very tight, very nice little center. You drive through it and you're gone, you're back again into single family or even rural landscape. But you have this core area here that functions as your anchor on the west end and your access and arrival into the big park in Mecklenburg County. We also showed some of the trail types. This is from the rest of the booklet greenway system, which we're going to see in just a moment after this presentation. Eric is going to show you the greenway plan. So we've been able to use these components from the other plans, and they're scattered throughout all of the plans that you've seen. We have street sections for all 5 small area plans, and we have trail types for all 5 small area plans. It's like a plug and play. There's a possibility in terms of the network that we want approved, the component that the private sector is going to add, and then another possibility here through this neighborhood that allows you to come down to the creek, experience the creek, come through the apartment complex, and also hook up to the multimodal path. So the more of these we can identify, the more rich and the more interesting your whole system is, right? It's great to have one piece of infrastructure, but if it's just one piece of infrastructure and it's the same throughout your whole city, it can be kind of boring. What's really impressive to people is to be able to go off-road, so to speak, and visit and experience neighborhoods and parts of the city that they wouldn't usually do through a dedicated system of paths and trails like this. There we go. Any questions? Thank you. I'll hand it back over to Lynn.
So I think this evening what we're looking for is for you all to approve the plan. So we can move forward with that. But did you have any questions of staff?
Lynn, can you go back to the site plan that shows the concept uses with the apartments and the single family back in the corner? Okay. What was the thinking to have those 9 isolated lots back behind the Harris Teeter? To me, that seems like not a good fit.
Well, I'll give you my answer, and I'm sure Dimitri can expand on it, but originally there was a townhome project on that piece of property. There's a stream on that property as well, which I believe the original project kind of incorporated in. I think they were going to build around it. The stream buffer requirements from the state changed, which make that site very difficult. I don't believe what's there is approved to be able to build that today in terms of density. So I think that's one of the reasons. I think that little cluster of land back there is probably one of the only true buildable areas on that track. Is that correct, Dimitri? Is that
Yeah, Ms. Baxton, what we can't actually show here, unfortunately, because it's two-dimensional, is the topography back there. This is a very steep ditch, and so it goes down to a creek bed, so the topography is quite difficult. And what they had here was actually an idea that this development here would extend up into there. So we're actually showing a cut into there. The only way to really develop this and get it to be in a way that wouldn't cost a lot, is to have large lots, just because of the grading issue. So we're just showing it as a possibility. It may not even get developed, it may just stay green depending on what happens. But we're showing it because it is a developable piece of property, but you're not gonna get much more than some large homes on it.
And are you saying the adjoining parcel connects into that? But that's not included in the small area plan?
Yes, that's not in the small area plan, that's this parcel here. It's a couple of properties. I don't know if it's one single ownership, but I believe that there was some, the plan that I saw for the Harris Teeter site showed a stub out and connection there, so we left it in there, which made sense, because I think accessibility-wise, another way out would be through here, and with a larger residential development. It might look something like this here.
And is that parcel in the town of Stallings too, or do our boundaries end where the area plan ends?
That's a good question. Lynn?
I'm sorry,
Is this in Stallings?
it is not. It's in, I believe it's in Weddington.
If it's in Weddington, it'll have to be large lots, so
Exactly.
that may work out.
Isn't that property next to it, that single-family home that sits way off the road? They have the really nice fence that is forever being knocked down because people slip and slide, or they aren't capable of keeping it on the road, and so they take that neighbor's fence down regularly.
Okay, I have one other question, and then that little segment back there, I don't see a connection to the park from that little non-lot neighborhood. Is there a way to at least get a pedestrian connection through there? I don't think you'd want an auto connection, but so those people could get into the park from that.
From the, you mean from here?
Yes.
Yeah, from the single family.
Yeah, it could easily, I mean, the trail system that's being looked at right now from Pappas Properties extends up here around the corner up on the ridge and goes in. You could say that, you know, if from this neighborhood, from whatever happens here in Weddington, a easement or a right-of-way could be provided between these two lots at the end of this cul-de-sac that extends through it and connects to it. That could happen, yeah.
Is that not something we should incorporate as the plans being adopted?
We could show it.
It's just hard to get easements after the fact.
That's true, but the issue here though is that this plan is already approved for your Harris Teeter site. This swath right here. They had townhomes here, we switched it to homes because the townhomes aren't gonna be able to be built. So we did make some changes. We left basically their volume development the same. We just rearranged some of their footprints. I think if we were to require them to build an easement, to provide an easement through here and a trail, that would actually be that would be something they'd have to come. I don't know if we could make them do that. That's an additional thing to their permit, which they've already gotten a permit for. You know, they'll always come back and move things around once they get the final plan, but to make them add on to that, you would have to, I don't know how you would do that actually. You'd have to.
But we can change to single family without getting an agreement from them on that. That's what we approved as townhomes.
That's true. We did lower their density.
And this is really just showing this on the small area plan. I'm thinking that's something that the adjoining property owner would need to agree to. We can show it. I mean, then that just gives us the ability to have that conversation when those plans come in. But I mean, definitely, it's something we can show on the plan. And then I think moving forward, that would have to be a conversation with whoever developed this site and the owner of that adjacent property. But I mean, if showing it definitely gives us the opportunity to ask for it. So if we think that's something we want, it probably would be wise to show it if that's the council's, that would definitely have to be some sort of agreement that, you know, we couldn't just put it on that piece of property or ask that developer to put it on the neighboring piece of property. We have some sort of approval from that property owner.
go to the, other one, the black and white, go back, yeah, it's right there, property
You know,
line.
that is their property goes, I mean, they own across that, is it a power line?
Yeah.
That way?
Mhm.
They actually own there, they own the property there.
But they don't own,
They don't
the
get all the way
Pappas
to.
property gets
Takes
the
it
park is
right
not
there.
attached, to it, yeah, right.
Even a tiny little easement, not much of one.
Triangular piece. Is it the triangular piece above the larger lot homes? Is that what we're talking about, that is part?
This is, but this is the property,
Yeah.
Okay,
right, that you've already approved.
okay,
This is the Pappas property.
okay.
The park is here. So
And it
if
just
there's
gets
an
it
easement,
right there
it
to
would
that
come,
corner.
they would not be able
You
to
could
get
get
to the
close.
park until it would have to cross over into the Pappas property and then connect somewhere.
It's close. It's like right there.
So you need a little, you need some coordination to get it to go through.
Anything else?
Not for me.
Down your way? What do you need from us, Lindy?
We just need a motion, to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the Chestnut Small Area Plan. Do we need to add that addition that we would like to see?
That's up to you guys.
What do you guys think? That we would like to see a connection to the park?
If possible.
If possible.
Okay, and we'd like to add that we'd like to see a connection to the park if possible.
I second.
Can you state where you want?
From the single
The
family,
single family on the white, is that the white property? Is that-
the Harris Teeter property.
Is that the Shirley White property?
Okay, we've got a motion to approve with an amendment added. We had a park access through the white property, if possible.
Wouldn't be through the white, well, it'd be through the white and the Pappas property, I believe. But then it's probably across the darker green triangle.
Yeah, that's true, that's the Pappas property on that too, so we'd have to get their approval as well. So that would be a good option to have access to the park through two entrances or two methods of getting back there. All right, is that worded well enough?
You got it.
Got a motion by Debbie, Kathy seconds, all in favor? That's unanimous.
I'm so excited for this.
All right. Lynn, you're still up.
The second part of the Chestnut Swell Area Plan approval request this evening is the consideration of rezoning two parcels that are located within the Small Area Plan study area. As I stated previously, when we adopted the three other small area plans in town, we applied the MU2 and the MU1 zoning district to those areas, and those were zoning districts that allowed for these projects and these plans to be built out as we envision them to be. So this evening, this area is a little bit different. It's much smaller. There's not a lot of property here that's either undeveloped or in our jurisdiction that we can rezone. So this evening, what we're requesting is that 2 parcels that are currently zoned single-family residential be rezoned to MU2. The first one being the Union Power Cooperative Site, which is parcel 060870001. And you can see on the map, and this is how the map previously or currently shows it. We're proposing that the MU2 be applied to that. And then that corner piece, directly on the corner of Chestnut and Matthews Weddington at parcel 071411003A, we're recommending that those 2 be changed to MU2. Currently, the rest of the properties shown in the plan either have a conditional zoning on them that they have a vested right to. So that is why we are not, if we put MU2 on those, we're basically taking that vested right conditional zoning away. And legally, we just aren't looking to do that right now. And then the properties on the opposite corner of Chestnut and Matthews Weddington are in the county. So we have no zoning jurisdiction there. Hopefully, when those do develop, they'll come to us and want to annex into the town. So this evening, what we're requesting is that the 2 parcels shown on the map be changed to MU2.
You've saved stuff for the information from staff, haven't you? Because I need to open the public hearing. So, if anybody has any comments on this annexate or rezoning issue, now's your time. We'll open the public hearing. Okay. I'll close the public hearing, seeing that's how nobody has come forward. Information from staff. Would you like to add anything more, Lynn?
I gotta thank myself. No, that is all. If council has any questions, I'd be glad to answer those.
Were any homeowners notified in Chestnut?
Yes, I believe we did notify all adjoining property owners.
Because that small corner that's next to Mario's does back up to that residential, so and we didn't have any comments come back?
I did not receive any no.
Okay. They probably realize it's just a given that because Mario's went in, that corner's gonna develop very similarly.
Any discussion from council? All right.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
For the public hearing, was there a motion to go into a public hearing?
No, I called it into it.
Okay.
Do I need to do a motion to call in, or?
My experience has been just to be safe, to do a motion to go into public hearing.
We can go again.
But, you know, it's possible we can do it either way.
Well, I already did it the one way. If you need us to do it the other way, we'll do it that way.
Let's do it the other way, just to be
Cover
safe.
both. All right, need a motion to go in public hearing.
Motion made.
All in favor? Any comments? Okay, I'd like a motion to go out of.
Motion made. All in favor?
Okay, it's unanimous again.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. I doubt there's any additional council comments or discussion, so if that's the case, let's move to the council vote. I need a motion, please.
I'll make a motion to approve RZ 19.01.01.
All,
We need to get more information, like parcels. We need to say that?
go ahead. What is
Mr.
your
Manager,
motion?
rezoning of parcels number 06087001 and number 07141003A, located on Matthews Weddington Road. From SFR 1 to MU2 to accommodate future development of the Chestnuts long area plan.
That's the motion, was seconded by Mr. Shauna. All in favor? Unanimous. Both times.
Crazy.
Still up.
I won't get ahead of myself this time, I promise.
I think you can this time. All right, Lynn, got a question.
There is an ordinance that's part of the rezoning that you all do need to adopt, yes, sir. Yes.
Thank you for catching that.
Yes.
That's,
It wasn't part of the motion, yeah, so it needs to be adopted.
way in the back.
Okay.
Okay, so somewhere in the agenda packet, not somewhere, but in the item number here, we've got a ordinance to adopt. Somebody want to read it? In?
I'll read it since I have it up here. Okay. An ordinance amending the Stallings Development Ordinance of the Town of Stallings, North Carolina. Whereas on February 26, 2018, the Town Council adopted the new Stallings Development Ordinance. And whereas rezoning property to MU2 is consistent with the 2017 Comprehensive Land Use Plan and adopted small area plans. And whereas in order to promote the public safety, health, and welfare, rezoning of parcels to accommodate goals of the Chestnut Small Area Plan is recommended. And therefore, the Town Council of the Town of Stallings do ordain amending the Stallings zoning map for as follows. Parcel 06087001 from single family 1 to MU2. Parcel 07141003A from single family 1 to MU2. The ordinance shall be effective immediately upon its adoption, adopted this 28th day of January 2019.
Would you like to follow that up with the motion to approve it?
I move that we approve the amendment to the development ordinance of the Town of Stallings as read. A second.
All in favor? Unanimous. All right. Now we're moving into the Greenway plan.
Good evening. I think the last time that I was here to speak about the Greenway Plan to council was right before we did the public meeting at the elementary school. And when we presented at that particular meeting, I pretty much laid out the entire planning document, or at least a lot of the core elements of the Greenway and Recreation Master Plan. And there's a few other details, some of which I'm going to highlight. But really the purpose of this presentation is to, one, remind you all of kind of where we've come and how we've gotten to where we are right now. And really to focus in on the action plan, the actual implementation chapter of the Greenway Master Plan. This is the culmination of a year's worth of work here, and we just passed out a 150-page document to you all that summarizes all of that work. But I want to start off with just quickly going over the kind of the plan overview, just to remind you of a few key concepts, how we organize the document, things along those lines. And then the end of the presentation is all about the implementation chapter, which is the piece that I have not presented to you all, at all. We really haven't even presented it to the public, although the Greenway and Recreation Steering Committee at our last meeting, I think that was in December, we did start to hint, like, all right, here's how we're going to package, or here's how we're going to recommend to staff and council that you actually move this thing into action. So I want to spend some time talking about the policies, project development, design, engineering, construction, and so forth, and some actual focus projects. So from just a quick facts, Connect Stallings Recreation and Greenway Master Plan. We did 2 public workshops. One was in March, another one was in September, October. We did 3, maybe 4 steering committee meetings, because I know the Recreation Committee joined us after our first one. We did 3 meetings that were aimed solely at the homeowner associations. We did 2 online surveys, one about greenways, one directed towards recreation and parks and such. We had over 500 responses. Inside the document, there are 32 custom exhibits that we produced, 13 custom maps. We're proposing 2 new parks for you all, and we're proposing an extensive rehab or renovation to what we suggest as Blair Mill Nature Park. There's 11 trailheads proposed, and if you built every single greenway and connector that's proposed in the document, including those that are in private HOAs everywhere. It adds up to almost 31 miles, so pretty significant. If you just use our dollar figure of a linear foot cost, a low end of, if we use a low end of $150 to $250, it comes out to around $20 to $45 million, and that's if you didn't have any developer support, which you're going to have, and you didn't have any DOT support, which you would certainly have as we start talking about the spine that goes through the community. But the implementation chapter breaks down a budget for every single trail, every single park as well. We also make some staff recommendations. At what point, do you start to get hemmed in as a staff? How many miles starts to justify a part-time position? If you renovate part of Blair Mill or all of Blair Mill or the Stallings Thread Trail Park, when does that trigger staff? So we provided recommendations for that as well. One of the things that the Recreation Committee and the Greenway Steering Committee worked towards was trying to determine, this what we call the Stallings standard. And Stallings is a little unique in that obviously you're 6 miles long and 1 mile wide, but you have all these surrounding municipalities that impact your recreation kind of quality of life, if you will. And when we looked at the level of service that you all were providing, we had to take into account what adjacent communities were doing. So it was determined that Stallings would not work towards active recreation facilities, big soccer complexes, big baseball complexes. Instead, that we would focus on great picnicking areas, great playgrounds, a phenomenal trail system, open space, parkland, dog parks. These were the types of things that resonated in the surveys and that we felt like as consultants was the correct direction to go. And then of course the steering committee and you all agreed to this as well in the last meeting. So what happened here was we kind of created this entire visioning statement that was centered around leveraging the active recreation facilities that are surrounding Stallings, so you guys don't have to pay for that infrastructure, but at the same time you could invest in a phenomenal open space, greenway network, and the like. If you recall, we took the entire study area and we broke it up into 3 planning sections. The north section extends from Lawyers Road to Blair Mill Park, central from Blair Mill to Old Monroe, and then the south from Old Monroe to Colonel Francis Beatty. Also, from a terminology standpoint, we introduced the last meeting with you all this idea of the Stallings spine. This is the concept of how are we really going to connect all of Stallings. Some of this is going to be along some creeks and roadways, but primarily, it's going to be along, a multimodal paths that are parallel to some of your major roads. And then from there, we want to connect into various connector trails and so forth. So really quickly, the north planning section, again from Lawyers Road to Blair Mill, a few key features. We worked with the committee to develop a complete master plan for Blair Mill Nature Park. Stevens Mill, the retrofit, this idea of taking some of your existing sidewalk areas, you're going to have to move those from 5 and 6 feet wide into 14 foot wide if you really want to provide the multi-use connectivity that we're proposing. We're going to talk about Blair Mill at the end of in the implementation chapter. But one thing that's really evolved is this entire kind of wetland boardwalk and trail network right in the heart of the park. And then, of course, we have this open space area that's anchored by a little open air classroom and a water lab area. And then over here we have a small dog park and a large dog park. And then the Stallings spine just runs right along Stevens Mill. We can cross over Stevens Mill, get onto the property that you all control, and move all the way to the Idlewild Market. Okay? So this is a great place to start with implementation. Moving to the central planning section, This is where the two new parks are actually proposed. One of those is called Stallings Thread Trail Park. Here we're trying to brand, Stallings along with the thread trail that comes through Stallings in 2 locations. This is one of those. And then Sweet Birch Park, which is part of the elementary school implementation or small area plan. What's that?
Oh, I thought you were going to mention the name of the events attached to it.
Okay. So yes, this is part of the elementary school. Actually, both of these projects are part of the elementary school small area plan. And there you have it. So if you were to look at your small area plan, which by the way, we included all of the small area plans inside the discovery chapter of this. So everything's kind of really consolidated, really tightly inside this particular document. So you can see how we propose a park here, and try to move the trail around it, as this development occurs. We also proposed another trailhead here at this location as well in the long run. So again, remember this is kind of the Stallings-Stephen Mill connector area. The Carolina Thread Trail comes along Oak Springs Road, pushes north here along North Fork Crooked Creek, and then along its tributary, and then on up Stallings Road. So we're trying to brand this particular park with the thread trail. This particular park we want to happen through policy. We want this park to occur as this particular area develops. So we want to talk about that a little bit later on as well. Blow up real quickly Stallings Thread Trail Park. This is meant to be kind of your adventure place. Okay? So think from Stallings Municipal Park and its purpose, and we kind of start with that. And then we look at Blair Mill as a nature park, the wetland area, the dog park. It's kind of an open air classroom. And then here we push into like this adventure experience. This is where, now you're 8 years old and above, a little bit older. We've done and built some parks like this, phenomenal for autistic children, and it's amazing what these types of parks will bring out. So pretty excited about that. And then Sweet Birch is a little simple kind of open space network. We're able to get in a mile trail network all the way around this particular park, and thought, hey, let's throw in a covered bridge here, another little accent or little trail marker piece as well. Then we get down to the Stallings Town Center plan. Of course, bringing in the spine along with the developments proposed there as part of that small area plan. The south section, we just spent time talking about some of the key features. I don't mean to rush over this, but of course the spine comes all the way down. It would be great to connect into some of the private neighborhoods, but it isn't necessary. But the key thing here is like as Chestnut grows, how do we connect into Colonel Francis Beatty? And as we create this node, all of a sudden, as road projects occur, we can go in and retrofit and create the multi-use path here in the long run. We talk about the suburban spine. This is where you have the grass swell. So it'd be road, grass swell, multi-use path. That's what you're going to kind of have out in these areas. But eventually, that'll transition into your curb and gutter. And then there'll be some parts back here that actually be wetland boardwalk, very, very possibly. All right, I know that I went through that quickly, but again, tonight's presentation is just for us to present to you all and to provide you with the document. But this is the part that I've not presented to you all. Staff and I, we've had a number of conversations about the action plan, and we've organized it into 3 types. Okay, there's 3 types of actions. First are your policy actions. If you want to put an icon to this, think of the brain. Like this is where you guys are just smart, okay? Just by implementing good policy. The first policy action is not even in the document, is to adopt the master plan, right? That's policy number 1. But by just adopting this document and doing some key things from a policy perspective, you can implement a lot of this document. I mean, for example, the Chestnut plan you just now adopted, the Pappas development group's coming in. From a policy perspective, you're saying, developer, here's our Greenway master plan. Make sure this is incorporated into the development. That's a policy, okay? So we're going to outline a number of those. The second is project development and land acquisition. The icon there, I would think is like muscle. Like this is like the hustle work. This is the grunt work. This is where it takes manpower to actually develop projects, to acquire land, to pursue grant funding, to secure easements, things along these lines. So where are those places? Where do you need to focus those efforts? And then the third piece of the action plan is design, engineering, and construction. Think of this as pieces that you all control. You all control the land, or one of your partners, i.e. DOT, controls the easement or right-of-way. So these are places we can start pushing implementation through moving into the design phase, engineering phase, and then implement things over a period of time as your budget allows. There's 8 total policy actions. The first one is simply staff dedication. You can't dabble with something like this. You have to commit resources and time to really make this happen. So we talk about staff dedication and allotting that from a time perspective. Fairly low-hanging fruit, CRTPO, adoption, NCDOT coordination. Lynn and I and a couple of members of my staff were able to go and meet with them a number of weeks ago. Talked about the process to get this through CRTPO, making the presentations, making sure that this is reflected on the map. So that as new DOT projects come up, from a policy perspective, we can implement this more quickly. Occupancy tax. This is something that I know the mayor's talked about, something I just wanted to encourage you all to pursue as you all get hotels or other short-term lodging here. You need to be in a position where you're collecting occupancy tax. I also make a note inside the document that I think it should be 6%. And the reason that I think it should be 6% is that if you guys did any less amount than that, then Union County could come in and pull in your other, lesser amounts. So say you guys only collected 3% occupancy tax, Union County could come in and pull the other 3, because according to the General Assembly, you can collect up to 6. What's unique about you all is you could be very competitive at 6%, because first of all, everyone collects at least 6%, and secondly, I think Charlotte collects 8 or more because of the NASCAR Center. They got a special appropriation to do so. Anyway, I just want to encourage you all, go to the General Assembly, get approved for a 6% occupancy tax. Again, if you're familiar with that legislation, how it works, 2/3 of those dollars can be used towards marketing the community. 1/3 of those can be utilized for capital projects that enhance tourism infrastructure, greenways and trails. We do it all over the state. Colonel Francis Beatty, from a policy perspective, we think within a year you all can have an MOU signed with Charlotte Parks that says, hey, we want to enter into, create access into your park. That's a policy thing that has to be done. Homeowner association engagement, this is the ongoing. It's just part of that hustle work, just to maintain face, to keep people apprised of what's happening with the greenway system as it continues to develop. I know you guys are already doing it, but from a policy perspective, your land development agreements are critical, whether it be Chestnut, Elementary School Node, Idlewild. This is policy. You guys can implement so much of this plan through this fact. Something else that you all might consider, and Exhibit 26 provides you with a little breakdown of how we do capital campaign work from kind of a strategy standpoint. You all have quite a few industries and a really dynamic community here. I'm not so sure that you can't raise significant private dollars through kind of a capital campaign type of method to support a project like this as well. So wanted to throw that in there for you all to consider. And then lastly, a capital improvement plan. I know you all have a CIP, but to put key elements in here because they're costly, and lay those out. Also, if you ever went after a Parks and Recreation Trust Fund grant, you also get more funding you get more points if you have a CIP that represents the project. So those are the 8 policy actions. Now I'll move over to project development and land acquisition, and I only have one area for you. Come up with more work. But in this kind of situation, where you all have limited staff and capacity, if you all can focus in one area, remember this is the muscle piece, this is the hustle piece, it would be around the Crooked Creek Parks and Greenway implementation. So again, this is working all around the Stallings Elementary School. Next Level Church, reaching out to them, trying to see what it would take to acquire property there. This property here would either be acquired up front or could possibly happen with a development agreement after this happens at some point in the future. Making this area happen and then working these easements all the way around North Fork Crooked Creek, part of which is on the Carolina Thread Trail. So there's other funding opportunities, other capacity that's available to you through that particular organization. So when we talk about project development, we talk about land acquisition, this is just focusing on this one particular area. Design, engineering, construction actions, so a handful of these, primarily centered around Blair Mill, the greenway there, Blair Mill implementation. So from a policy perspective, you're going to be working back behind the Idlewild development as that occurs to get that connection happen, make sure that connection happens through policy. But you all control this piece of property behind Vickery and along the branch here. There's no policy that's going to make that happen, right? And this is going to require design, engineering, construction. So it's inside of this particular part of the action plan. And then, of course, Blair Mill Nature Park. How are you going to bite, that elephant, right? I mean, there's a lot to be done there. It's probably a $4 million investment if you built everything there. So how do you break that into pieces and so forth? Blair Mill, we feel like, has 3 pieces, and this is after talking to staff as well. So I think they'd back me up. They might leave me out to dry too, you see. Phase 1, wetland boardwalk, that's right here in the core area. I feel like that's your anchor, that's like where you can start. Look, this is going to be an awesome place of respite for the entire greenway system. How many places are like this, like in the Charlotte area, where you can come to, you're inside of a canopy like this. We also developed 7 different little stations to learn about, wetlands and their benefits, wildlife, plant life, and so forth. So it's carrying on that Blair Mill Nature Park kind of theme and kind of start anchoring down your system here. Then maybe phase 2, you push into the dog park area, and then phase 3, you develop the water lab and the outdoor classroom and so forth. Throw out a budget scenario for you if you were just to do phase 1 wetland area and just try to move forward with this piece back behind Vickery. Paved 10-foot wide trail behind Vickery, you're looking at 1,950 feet. We put out a number of 150 a linear foot. Could be more, could be less. I've built trail for significantly less, paved 10-foot wide for significantly less, but construction prices are out of sight right now. So put it at 150. I normally would add just 30%, for just extra features, signage, other elements and so forth. Blair Mill Nature Park Phase 1, just looking at the wetland system, we're looking at 900 feet of wetland boardwalk. We're looking at another 2,000 feet of paved trail, subject to change and based on a survey and based on a wetland delineation, which we would have to do to make that all happen. If you add another 30% there for other various costs, you're looking around $667,000 to pull off that particular area there. All things to consider. Some other kind of low-hanging fruit, I guess you might call it low-hanging, maybe not. All these projects are pricey, right? Of course, you have your new town hall you're building here next door, improving the streetscape, and then of course, what does it look like to maybe do a pilot project to build the Stallings spine and start to push up towards the CEM campus, which is coming, right? We're working on that small area plan. Again, this is property you all control, you all can start to manage from a design engineering standpoint. Another thing that staff felt was very important is thinking from Blair Mill Nature Park back up north towards Stevens Mill Commercial Center. That area gets a lot of walkers, a lot of traffic, and in the long run, you really want to connect that commercial area and that entire neighborhood, and all those neighborhoods, down to Blair Mill, which then are going to push behind Vickery and connect into all of those new neighborhoods and the Idlewild Commercial Center. So this is another area that obviously is in DOT's control, but you could move forward with design, engineering, construction there. Questions? So again, you guys now have a 150-page document that we're trying to now summarize into some really clear actions for you all in terms of starting to move things forward.
May I ask a question, Judge?
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think this is a really impressive piece of work here, obviously. A lot of pages and a lot of work, but it's also a lot to take in.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if we might, set aside, maybe a work session sometime, or maybe, some additional time at the planning conference coming up to dig into this a little bit. Because for me, there's too much here to take any kind of action tonight.
Oh, yeah.
I want to go home and study this and kind of take a lot of this in before I'd be prepared to make any kind of decisions with regard to that. I don't know how everybody else feels.
Oh, great. This is an awesome presentation, but
Yes.
getting this thing as we sit down is like, it take a little bit of time to read that.
Oh yeah, and that was the intention, was for me to come here and give you all the document, present the last chapter just to provide you with a little bit of context to it, and then I think that's great. I mean, I could talk about this stuff all day. So
I don't think we're talking about delaying it long, but just enough that we got to get through this. We have a planning session first Saturday in February, I think. Although I don't think it'll fit into that agenda on that day, but we could have another session.
I mean, one good thing from a policy perspective is that all of these elements are inside of the small area plans. So as development occurs, I mean, you're in a position to start securing easements and implementation and so forth. So that's, you're not hemmed in on that particular policy action. That's good.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you very much. We appreciate the presentation and the great work and providing us with reading material for the next hour long.
Mr. Mayor, Pro Tem, can I ask a quick question?
Oh, yeah.
Eric, thank you for providing us, obviously a lot of information. You and your team and our staff worked incredibly hard on with the Greenway Committee. So thank you for that. A lot of information. I think you provided some excellent context to the council members that are here. The mayor and Mr. Martin aren't here today. Would you be willing to kind of maybe sit down with them and kind of go through some of this information so that they're maybe brought up to the same point as other council members, given the magnitude of this decision?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm available to do that next 2 weeks or so.
Thank you.
So, as far as kind of the work session, or excuse me, the annual treatments on the 9th, you could spend days talking about this, right? Maybe there are a couple choice nuggets from this that it's worth at least talking about. If y'all feel, maybe, I heard the occupancy tax, for example. I know we talked about that a lot. How much do you want to go up with? What do you think you want to do there? That might be something that could be a subject of discussion. And then also, maybe putting it on the agenda and continuing discussion on that first meeting in February, which is, I believe, February 11th. Would y'all be open to that, putting it on the agenda to continue the discussion at that point? That's true. Just so we have the next check-in point.
Yeah, I don't think we want to lose any momentum, but we do want to have some time to get through this.
I'm frankly would like to have a dedicated session, rather than it being something within our council meeting, maybe just have a work session that is dedicated to discussion of this document. It's very weighty. I'm not sure how much we could do in just a few minutes in a council meeting.
I think we need to plan a special meeting, maybe start at 6, and work a couple hours.
You want to look at doing like a 6 o'clock on maybe the 11th?
I don't think that would give, I think we probably need to dedicate another evening, because I think 1 hour will not be sufficient. There's so much here. But I think we need to get through it before we start going into the budget process, so we all have a good handle on what we're thinking we'd like to do or what we want to to wait on. So I mean, I think
Sure.
there's an urgency to it, but I think we're gonna need more than an hour. At least I'm gonna need more than an hour
I
just to digest, to be able to converse and elucidate. So we understand.
A lot of elucidation is needed. Is there maybe a next time when we should kind of set that special work session where we talk about this, or?
Just as John and Wyatt are here, just throw some dates on this and see what takes place for next month.
Okay, there's some dates, so February, kind of early in February, sometime in there.
Yes.
Okay, is there, I know Wyatt's typically Mondays and Fridays are better for him. Monday is okay with everybody. Maybe we shoot for,
18.
18th would be the next Monday following the 11th.
For council meetings.
Isn't that, that's holiday weekend?
The President's Day.
We get off President's Day.
I don't think we get that off, from a town standpoint.
We don't, yes, you don't, because we don't, yes. What about Tuesday or Thursday that week? I mean, that is the week we're trying to see if we need to make a trip to Raleigh. We haven't heard anything as far as any contact that was made. You know, if we're gonna schedule it that week, so, I don't know, maybe, I don't know.
We're gonna shoot for tentatively the 19th, Tuesday.
Depend on the weather thing, maybe.
Yeah.
I'll
Then
be going.
On the 19th, we don't.
We took yesterday off.
Is the second session of the month not intended to be a work session?
Yes, it is.
It is.
What about them?
We shoot for the 25th? Okay.
That way the interview with David, Rollins.
You want to start earlier, given, I know,
Yeah,
what I
start
heard is
earlier.
maybe, we need more time than an hour to kind of process and talk through this information.
Yeah.
Okay, so shoot for the 25th, start at 6 o'clock.
Yes.
Maybe try to limit the other kinds of items on the agenda for the regular part of that meeting, so that we do have that time. Yes.
I was.
All right.
Eric, what are you doing on the 25th?
I'll be in Stallings that evening.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, since you're gonna be here, you wanna stop by?
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll get there.
Okay,
So the 25th at 6 o'clock?
You ready?
yes, please.
All right, let's do it.
All right, thank you. All set already, Marcia?
I am.
You're up.
It's kind of nice you're talking about this stuff, because one of the things this evening I'm gonna try and get council to get a head start on is really the CMIP. Because really, we have to, we should be looking at that and revamping it, because there's the things that are listed on it as of, the last one that we had are pretty much overwritten by changes that we have on these plans. The major projects, which are new town hall and the public works building, they're in the works now, so they will be ongoing until they're completed, so they will appear a little bit on the CMIP for next year. But these are the types of things that we would want to identify, projects in the future, and add to that plan. So I did have that. I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit. I was going to do the finance report first, but I have a draft budget in front of everyone. And if you look, there's the CMIP review by council. And I'd like to, try and get some of those highlighted dates are ones where the council really, I need to get some feedback from you as well. Because what we did in the past was we used the Monday meetings. We would start an hour earlier to review budget. So I wanted to get this in front of you. As you can see, it's a draft plan. Maybe we can, at the next meeting, nail down some of these dates and actually put some validity to those make this a current, change it from draft to what council is approving as far as, or targets moving forward for reviews. But I think it's very doable, and I can pull that up if you want me to. Went out of order, but this is actually it here. I kind of work backwards, obviously, we have to have by the 24th of June, the updated, or the actual budget, but in moving up there, this gives us time, the first part really, until we see the yellow, is really internal staff, building the model, getting staff input and department input. And then obviously the CMIP. It's really an important piece. I'd really like to stress time being spent on that this year, because I feel like there's a lot of pieces that that we can include in this plan, which would include building maintenance and everything else that we're budgeting for that every year. And we know that those costs are going to come up. So I'd like to start thinking in those directions, as far as, looking at those costs and planning for them. So not only capital improvements, but really maintenance type items that we want to do as well. So this, I'm just going to say we'll talk about it next time if that's council wishes. Okay. Back to the presentation. Alrighty, we have actually really good news for the different, for the first 6 months of the year. This is actually through December 31st, but I do want to say that since we have the proceeds from the loan and all of the investment accounts and money starting to roll in with tax revenue, right now the town is actually sitting with $11.93 million in the bank. So we have plenty of cash to move forward with the, what our plans are. Obviously, $3 million of that is related to the buildings, the new buildings and those proceeds. But the other cash to move forward with Potter Road, Pleasant Plains, all of that is we have it there ready to go. They are investment accounts. Most of it is an investment account where we're earning interest as well, investment earnings. Looking at the general fund, so far for the first 6 months, we're at $3.8 million total. If you're, this is just general fund revenues. Our budget for the year is 8.3. You would think 6 months in you should be at half. Really, we've got some lag on our taxes as far as collections go. So we have only 4 months worth of sales tax, vehicle tax, motor vehicle in there, and then we have 8 months left of those to collect. Sales tax is about $100,000 a month, so we're actually on target for all those. The ad valorem, we have been collecting quite a bit this past month and even in January. The collection in January was right at $1 million, so we actually have collected, it's $3.092 million for the year, if you're including what we got in January, which would represent December's collections. So we'll have another big month in in February for collections, and then they'll kind of drop to the side because at it's almost 3.1 million. We had only budgeted 3.5 million for the year, so we'll collect most of that by the end of next month. If you look at some of the others, PAL bill, we've received all of our PAL bill money for the year, and the expenditures on that so far have only been about $300,000. So we will have some PAL bill money. You can use that on Greenways too, by the way. And if you're looking further down, the franchise utility, we've gotten 2 distributions. They're quarterly, so we're on target to meet the $800,000 we have budgeted. So altogether, like I said, it's looking like we're lagging a little, but we're actually not. We're right on target for the year to actually exceed what we have in revenues for budget. Any questions? Okay, let's go actual versus budget on expenditures now. General government, I'm gonna really talk about those expenditures where the percentage off to the right will exceed 50%, because we're halfway through the year. If we're either way below or way high, I will go over those numbers. Just looking at the total for general government, we are at pretty much 50% total. We have $1,074,000, we've spent $500,527. And the only capital outlay item down there, I know that I mentioned to council actually putting an amendment or an ordinance in front of you this meeting. We're gonna wait till next meeting. It took a little more digging into what we had done in the past for capital projects, and I'll talk about that when we're done with this presentation. But I'm gonna put that ordinance to council the next meeting for approval, and then we can move that $18,200 to that capital project fund. Public safety, they're at about 50% also total budget, about $2 million versus $2.3 million for the budget. The big ticket items here are the other category, which includes their insurance expense, and that's why that looks like it's spent 79.4% because we pay the premium beginning of the year for the whole year. And then obviously the vehicles delivered at the bottom, capital outlay, we have spent 100% of those funds, and the $867, I'm gonna reclass that to a different line item. I can do that. It was coded to that. It's actually for taxes related to those vehicles, and we can code that on another line, so we're not really over on that line item. Next one down, transportation. We are at 51.3% total for the year. The big ticket items on that, looks like it's really over, like 100.15% over our budget for outside services, but if you look, it's a really small number. We have $12,900 budgeted. We spent $14,854, and for some reason, it's looking like that, the 115.1%. It's really, we need to do a budget amendment for that, for the overage, and it's really for the TIA fees, which are the traffic impact analysis fees that we put in place, the ordinance. They gave them, it's really a pass-through through the town. The developers come in, pay the fee, we pay the consultant, but we have to account for the money coming in and going out. So it looks like it's over budget, but I think the most effective thing to do is actually wait till the end of the year, see how many of these fees we collect, and then do a budget amendment at the end of the year to account for them. Because we're not really sure how many we're going to get for the year. It would be a guess, and if we did it now. We may have to do it several times if we did one now, or did one each time the developer came in. So I'm suggesting that we do that once closer to the end of the year. The PAL bill, like I said, we spent $300,000 of the $400,000 budgeted. The road repair bid was awarded completed, and the contingency amount, I'm glad to report, was not used. They came in under without the contingency on it. So we actually have $100,000 there that we can use for other road repairs or whatever else the council chooses to.
I'll put in with Lyle on this. I think we had some overages on the Chestnut sidewalk project, doing some of those enhancements for the homeowners, so that I might offer that as one potential use for some of those funds.
Okay, Public Works, $195,000 spent to date, $324,000. They're at 60% of their total budget, and really it's for one-time costs that they've come up against. It was ramps for the trailer across the street, which we needed. We had to do that really to store vehicles and things that have wheels on it to get them into the trailers. So that was something that we needed to do. The hot water heater, we had some things come up as repair maintenance type items that were not budgeted. So I have a list of those at the very end, and we can go through that list when we get to that page. But it does identify them, and we're tracking them. We can see if we can absorb it on other line items. Right now, they're about 8,700 over their budget on that line, but like I said, we may be able to cut expenses in other areas within that department. Because if you look at like outside services, they're actually tracking budget, and then there's the bottom line capital outlay. There's still some money in there, but I'm sure that, you know, based on some of the other items that we have budgeted for, we may actually have to do a budget amendment for those others. Planning and zoning, we have 179,000 spent of 427,000, 42% of the total budget. Looking off to the right, the only thing that's over a little bit is the inventory and repairs, but it's really not much. We had ordered some fence screens that were budgeted for, so it's not nothing that wasn't budgeted. They're pretty much on track for the department, or actually below budget for the department. Park and Rec, 361,924 versus 802,800 budgeted. Most of their expenses in the capital outlay at 100%, that's really what's driving their numbers because of the shades that were purchased at the beginning of the year. That was 100% of that amount. The other departments, you can see the events and advertising. That really is coming in pretty much right on target, 50%, but actually it's below budget because we've taken the big hit the big events that we've had. Stallings Fest and the Christmas event, those have probably been major events for expense-wise for the year. So I'm sure that there are some savings in that as well. Sanitation, 48.9% is tracking budget. And debt service, we have not had to make any payments, but I'm sad to say we made one payment so far. It was an interest payment that I paid just the other day. It's like $5,000, and you'll see that in the January report. So total expenditures, you can see that we have almost 4 million versus 8.375 million budgeted, and it looks good so far this year. I mean, as a total, we may be able to get savings in some departments that would offset anything that we have to reallocate to another department. Any questions? Stormwater fund. We have total revenue of 261,000 out of 500,000, so we've collected about half of what we have billed or budgeted for the year. And that will come in. January collections will come in, and we'll be able to see, probably get most of it. I think it'll come up to very close to the $500,000 mark once we get this next month in. Expenditure-wise, you can see that we've only spent $104,000. We have a number of stormwater repairs that are out there right now. We have 14 projects that are in process. You can see them listed there: Strawberry Lane, Daily Lily Road, Codesdale Drive, Stallings Park, Iggy Lane, Lakewood Drive, Easter Drive. And then we have completed some projects: Goldcrest Drive, Cedar Point, Redwood Drive, Hyson Court, and Aurora Boulevard. And as they come up, we add them to the list as we complete them. I'll report those as well. So far this year, we have, if we did those 14 projects, you can see that if we completed all of them, it's about $125,000. So we will have expenditures, possibly 50% of the funds we have there. But we will have some expenditures or some funds that we're going to transfer in from this fund to the capital project fund. We suggest we do that to pay for the underground water retention. We talked about that. That's $208,000. So if you took those expenses plus what we expect to spend throughout the rest of this year, I still think we're going to be at the $500,000 revenue line, so it really won't affect the fund balance in the stormwater fund.
Question.
Yes.
Um, with regard to the 14 projects, how were those identified? Is that complaint driven? Is there a proactive approach to identifying repair work that needs to be done? How do we get those 14 projects?
It's really both of those approaches. One of the things we want to do, one of the things we have to talk about during the upcoming budget process is the possibility of doing regular maintenance on the stormwater system. And I would envision that could be a way that we could identify issues through that regular maintenance. Typically right now, it's done two ways. First, kind of complaint driven, and then secondly, the staff see and identify an area and take the lead on initiating that project.
And that's one of the things I was planning to suggest in my goals for the planning session. But aren't we also supposed to be doing street sweeping? I think under our current ordinance.
We asked Chris about that, I don't know if but Linda, just another thing, I know during the hurricane season, our staff went out and evaluated all of the areas of town that are prone to flooding or maybe not even prone to flooding, and that's where they identified a lot of issues. And then with what Chris and Kevin do is they prioritize them based on the stormwater criteria, and the ones that meet the top of the list are the ones that get immediate attention. Similar to the roads, they get graded.
I just was not aware that if we had that kind of a process, I'm glad we do.
Fund balance. As you can see, we have, since revenue has actually exceeded our expenses, total revenue, total expenses, our fund balance has actually gone up a little bit from the prior month. It was down in the $8.5 million area, and we are now up to 9.314 or 315 as of the end of December. We have year-to-date revenues less expenditures. You can see that line, it's blue, it's 507,872. So that's excess revenue of expenditures, at least to date. And then the top line, the minus 115,000, that actually represents the two budget amendments that we've already made, where we appropriated funds from the fund balance and added it to the department's budget. So that actually is a takeaway from the unassigned fund balance. But you can see we're doing very well. Total fund balance has gone up $369,933, and stormwaters has actually gone up $156,450. All right, last page. We have unbudgeted expenditures. This is a running list. Like I said, the only thing that I think I added this time were the elevator repairs that had to be made. The elevator was down for a while. We had to get some work done on it, and it actually cost about $4,000 to get that done. And we had to do that, ADA and all the rest of the other things that we needed to get it fixed quickly. So we did that. So altogether, the other ones were already identified from prior meetings, so I won't go through those again. But they are all in the public works area, and it's about $23,000 a year.
Can we just ask you a question on the fund balance page?
Yes.
The $330,000 that's designated for fees in the parkland, didn't we say that that could be used for
Yes.
the parks? So that amount almost would cover the one expense, I think, for the walking trail or the greenway plan for near Victory.
First of all, that N1, the Mill.
Uh-huh.
I think
the
between
Blair Mill.
295 and 380 was the range, so that'd be right in the middle there.
Yeah. Because the Blair Mill Nature Park, I think that was closer to 500 to 600,000.
That's phase one.
So that's something to just consider as we start looking at these plans. Thank you.
Yeah, Mark.
Thank you. Okay, I think I have one other piece here. believe I have it. Do not have it up on the screen, I apologize. And I can't get to it from where I'm at. But it's in front of all of you, it's the,
You need it?
She has it.
I do, I just, for the audience, there isn't a copy, I apologize. These things are not in order, so it's not very good. Thank you. Okay, what is that? I just want to make sure I don't have it in here. I don't think that's it, I think that's the budget. Yeah, I apologize. But what it is, it's a draft adoption for the capital project ordinance, and I talked a little bit about this. You can see that and it's really just talking about the buildings, really putting in place. We've already approved the funding. We've already gotten the cash. And this just assigns that cash to proceed with, to budget for that project, which we didn't make a budget amendment yet for the project. So if we look at this, I wanted to explain, in case there's some questions about trying to tie out these numbers to the actual bids that we got and whatnot. If you take section 3 of this, really the first part of it's just talking about what the project is, and this is the section 3 is saying the expenditures for the project. What it totals is $3,348,600. The way we get there are different components of that. The first line, construction, $2,942,000. The next line down, contractor's allowance of $123,550. And then the last line on there before the total project cost is owner's contingency of $60,000. If you add those together, you get $3,126,000, which is the bid that we accepted from Haas. Haas gave us a $60,000 owner contingency. It can be used for, I guess, anything that the town feels they, would like to add or change to the building, or any scope changes to the project as we go. But I put it on a contingency line because it's identified as an owner contingency to use later. I'd like to mention we could probably use that maybe to repay the parking lot at the end if it's not used. Hopefully it won't be, and that'll be something that, because we didn't put that in the budget amount for, the actual repaving of the entire parking lot. We thought we would see how the project was moving along, what the parking lot looked like after construction, which I'm thinking we'll probably end up wanting to do it, but, it's not in there. So it's a possible pot of money for that parking lot pavement. And the other things, construction material testing and inspections, council passed a contract with S&ME. I don't know if it was the last meeting or meeting before, for $25,000 worth of testing during the construction, and that's most of it. $5,000 is really adds the asbestos removal and some of the other little things that we might have to do during that. And then there's some other smaller things in there as well. The financial and legal costs, we paid $5,900 to DB&T, and the legal expenses were about $2,000 with our town attorney. And then architect's fees, that's actually the construction administration piece of it. The other parts of it have been paid. So this is for our architects, and this was in our main contract, settled, we signed it when we started the entire process of the design, and that's what they get for construction administration throughout the end of the project. Furniture, that's a big ticket item. It was originally when we talked $75,000. What we have done in the meantime is gone back to Boomerang, and we feel that, it's staff's recommendation that we use someone who specializes in picking furniture, to pick the furniture for the area over there. It's gonna be a public, most of it's gonna be a public view. I agree that, you know, for desks or something like that, I wouldn't, you know, we were just, you know, trying to, you know, outfit an office. But this is really gonna be our main lobby, our council chambers, and we want something that's gonna last and, you know, present, you know, we're spending this money on the building. I think that it's smart to invest in furniture that will last and actually be appealing and movable and fit the needs of those spaces. And I feel like, you know, that, and this is, you know, through discussions with Aaron also and Alex, this was mainly brought up in a meeting that we had, and I'm a messenger. But actually, it's been, I agree, I think it's, you know, wise to actually have someone come in and plan the space for you. So I do have that in, that's a number that we can change if that's something that we want to take out. As you can see, draft is written all over this, but I didn't want to throw, you know, bring this in front of the council next meeting and say, okay, we need to sign. So I'd like to, you know, I wanted you to have it in your hands, to be able to look at it. And this has not had legal review yet either. So there's, you know, this isn't final by any stretch of the imagination, but it is as far as total project cost. I can't think of anything else to add in. And as far as the funding sources, you can see that it comes from installment financing proceeds of the $2,918,000, general fund appropriations of $222,600, and then the stormwater transfer would be to cover that stormwater piece of $208,000. So those two have to be. And if you have any questions, you can call me, you can call Alex. You know, but I will be, this will be brought next meeting for approval after we review. Any questions?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Very thorough. Informative. Thank you very much.
Thank
Any
you.
initial feedback or thoughts that we could take away?
I think that having a consultant or whatever we're going to call that person to help with the furniture choosing is a good idea.
Yeah, the more we talk about it, as much as I would love to go to the IKEA and get meatballs one day. Yeah.
Well, go to IKEA and get the meatballs, just don't get furniture.
Sounds good. Make it a
Just don't
right
buy
trip, right? You know, this is gonna be a space that, you know, 20 years from now, obviously, plus we're gonna be using a lot of the same furniture, it's probably gonna be there, and it's gonna need to wear out. I mean, look at these chairs, you know, all the desks, everything. So we just want to make sure that whatever we're doing, we're picking out something that'll last for the long term, I guess.
Alex, you're up.
All right. So I'll talk to you a little bit about this part-time cleaning position and kind of what to do about our cleaning scenario, our situation that we've got. As you all know, our cleaning contractor unexpectedly quit due to health reasons. And so, you know, done what Stallings way is, we kind of pitched in, and everybody's helping kind of clean up their areas. And one of our part-time maintenance folks is kind of taking over the primary role of kind of cleaning over here. And I've had a bit of a change of heart on what to do about this situation. Initially, in looking at the numbers, I was like, well, you know, we should probably hire somebody part-time. But after thinking about it more and more, especially over the weekend, I do see some benefit in kind of contracting it out. You know, bring on a new person in-house. There's a lot of administrative costs, if not from a dollar figure standpoint directly, from a time spent from an administration standpoint. You'd be relying on kind of one person to clean everything. So this is kind of an entry-level position. So if there was turnover, and there would be turnover, there will be turnover at some point. Myself, Karen, you know, there's probably several others, you know, that have spent a good deal of time, you know, posting, evaluating candidates, and selecting them. So I do think any cost to this would be negated over the years. And I think if you contract it out, you have a better, steady service so that the building's clean and it's not something that we have to worry about once or twice a year whenever we lose somebody or maintain somebody. So that's kind of my thought process, and I was curious to see what you all think about the situation we find ourselves in with cleaning of the buildings and stuff.
Well, Alex and I talked about it earlier today, and I said, initially, they were thinking, obviously, of doing someone in-house. And so I'm like, you know, I'm fine with whatever you want to do. We told you guys that you needed to make the decision on if you needed someone and then communicate it with us. And he goes, actually, I'm changing my mind. So he gave me his reasons, as he just gave to us, and it does make sense. That is not a wonderful job to have to do, to go in and clean, and especially if somebody's worked during the day, it's a hard thing to do. I know we did it for 4 years while our girls were in college. My husband went in and cleaned dentist offices and doctor's offices, and ABS insulating or whatever, we cleaned their office. I hated it. It was awful, and I was so thankful when we could quit. So I think personally that it would be in our best interest to go with the recommendation from Alex. I'm wondering, like, what kind of hours are we talking about? And then,
so what we projected out was, so what we did is we took the jobs that we had and we assigned our part-time person. We had him track basically the hours, so that way instead of guesstimating, we could say, all right, data-wise, how many hours is it taking to actually clean it? And so we budgeted out about 10 hours, I think, a week. And so right now it's basically 3 hours, 3 times a week is kind of the cleaning regimen of what it takes for one person. And then we added an additional hour, so things that you maybe not do every week, but things like maybe cleaning off the blinds and things like that. Something that you do, not every week, but still regularly on an ongoing basis. That extra hour can be dedicated to those. So that was kind of the number of hours that we had projected out there.
Well, you've got my input from our conversations as well, so I'm pleased that the decision moving toward heading
which
out,
is what?
going outside, getting the cleaning contractor position.
I agree with the contract too, because like you're retraining that person, that's gonna be well over the 1640 difference in time and labor, and just, once you invest in the employee with the training, and then if that person's sick, I mean, with a contractor, they're always gonna have someone there, whether it's on vacation or sick, and they can send it to me and crew to get him quicker, or 3 men or whatever their time to do their stuff. So I think it'll take just one less thing for you to worry about off of your shoulders.
I think in the long run, it saves money.
Oh, yeah,
That way.
just labor, time, training.
Well, and I had the same conversation with Alex earlier this morning, apparently, and I was, I'm more comfortable with the contractor. I was gonna go with his recommendation for the in-house, if that was what he felt was better, but, after he's reconsidered, I'm pleased that, and we all seem to agree that the contractor is a better route, so, I'm good with that.
Well, everybody, I appreciate y'all letting me reserve the right to change my mind.
Do we need a motion of any kind for this?
I don't think so. I think I've got the kind of consensus, and we'll make it happen. There's some details we'll work out as far as contracting and timeline, because we're going to be adding a new space down there, so we need to budget that out and figure out how to do it. But I think I can take it from here.
All right, agenda item 7A.
Okay, I had asked to add this to the agenda tonight, and just for the public's information here, we had representatives from Stallings meet with CATS Director John Lewis back in July to talk about our interest in extending the Silver light rail line into Stallings. And as a result of that, Stallings was invited to participate in a federal grant application to get funds for a study of transit-oriented development in that corridor that runs along Matthews, Indian Trail, and the city of Charlotte. And our contribution there is an in-kind contribution of staff, thanks to Lynn. We were awarded that grant in January. And what is coming up in the February meeting for the MTC is that they will be updating the long-range or the locally preferred alternative for the Silver Line. And Gastonia has already adopted a resolution in support of extending the Silver Line at its meeting in September. And then John Luke, who's been kind of guiding us with this a little bit, suggested that Stallings should consider a simple resolution. And he wants us to get this hopefully approved and to them so that when the MTC meets February the 27th to update that locally preferred alternative, that we can have our input included with that. And additionally, Stallings has been invited to present our small area plans and the new development opportunities that we have with the hospital and the CEM expansion at a future meeting. I think that may actually happen February the 27th, but John was still working with the agenda to know if it was going to be too heavy, it might be postponed. Have you had any update with that? I think we're moving toward the 27th for that, so hopefully, and maybe some of you can come. And there may be future opportunity for Stallings to be considered a party to the interlocal agreement that is between the MTC and the City of Charlotte and the 6 towns in Mecklenburg County. But as they're moving toward more regional participation in this, we may have an opportunity to become a party to that agreement. It would require action by council, and there may be a financial obligation like it is for Park Code, but we don't have that information at this time. So basically what I'm asking for you tonight is to adopt the resolution of support to extend the Silver Line rail corridor eastward into Town of Stallings. As it's in the plan right now, it stops at CPCC, and it's only a mile. Actually, I think a little less than a mile. And hopefully, if we continue to show interest in this project, we can get it extended down that corridor here by Matthews Indian Trail Road and connect maybe with the hospital. Yes.
Linda, do you know of any other towns besides Mecklenburg? Did Mecklenburg have been invited to be part of the UGC?
Well,
outside of Mecklenburg?
there are actually different levels of participation with the MTC. I've been looking into this a little bit. They have members who are party members and are part of that interlocal agreement. They are automatically a member of the board, but they also have ex officio members. And Jerry Morris and I have been participating as board members for the last 2 meetings because they invited us to come to the table. We can be part of the discussion, we just don't have a vote. But if we were to become a party to that, then we'd have voting rights. But like I said, that would require action both by the board and by this board to say that we wanted to be part of that. And I did ask the finance director for MTC what the financial obligation might be. She hasn't gotten back to me yet because I just asked her that over the weekend. So hopefully we'll get that information soon.
And between you and Lynn, if you guys would let us know if you plan to speak, because I would love to be there and support. And I just think, what Demetri said earlier, and with the Pappas interest in that Chestnut area, I think this just like kudos to staff and to us for being very foresightful instead of hindsightful and creating smart. Because I think it's a great compliment to Lynn when you get to speak. So, way to go. And I think this is a no-brainer. So I would love to make a motion to support this resolution to to support extension of the Lynx Silver Line to Stallings.
Can we read it in the record?
Sure.
You want to read it?
Resolution in support of the Charlotte Area Transit System CAS Lynx Silver Line Light Rail Corridor extending eastward to the town of Stallings in Union County. Whereas the Charlotte region is home to over 1.8 million people and is expected to grow over 2.5 million by 2030, and the key to supporting this economic growth is a regional rapid transit system integrated with land use planning, creating a sustainable economic environment which improves the quality of life and attracts businesses and people to the region. And whereas more transportation options are needed to provide greater mobility to our existing residents as well as the growing population in Stallings and in Union County. And whereas Union County has experienced rapid population growth for several years, and whereas the U.S. Census Bureau on the map application and the LEHD origin destination employment statistics 2015 data indicates that almost 45,000 Union County residents are traveling into Mecklenburg County each weekday for work. And whereas in November 16, the Metro Transit Commission, the MTC, adopted light rail as the locally preferred alternative for the Lynx Silver Line corridor from Uptown Charlotte to Matthews with the proposed terminus station at the CPCC Levine campus. And whereas on January 23, 2019, CAS staff presented recommendations for the Lynx Silver Line to continue west from Uptown Charlotte to Belmont in Gaston County, creating a continuous 25-mile light rail corridor from Matthews, Mecklenburg to Belmont, Gaston County. And whereas the Metropolitan Transit Commission is scheduled to approve and update the Lynx Silver Line locally preferred alternative LPA at their February 29, 2019 meeting as part of the updating the 2030 transit system corridor plan. And whereas the Union County stakeholders have expressed renewed interest in exploring rapid transit options into Union County from Mecklenburg County, and whereas based on the Strategic Transportation Investment STI law, public transportation projects with service spanning 2 or more counties and serving more than one municipality are eligible for funding at the regional impact tier. And whereas extending the Lynx Silver Line eastward to this town of Stallings would create a regional tier light rail project connecting 3 counties of Mecklenburg, Union, and Gaston. And whereas the town of Stallings has adopted a smaller plan for the Stallings Youth Road US 74 intersection. And whereas the town of Stallings, along with the Indian Trail, Matthews, Charlotte, Belmont, and Gaston were awarded a Federal Transit Administration Transit-Oriented Development TOD planning grant to explore TOD opportunities along the Lynx Silver Line corridor. Whereas Atrium Health announced on October 16, 2018 their intent to build the Atrium Health Union West Hospital and Medical Office campus in the town of Stallings at the intersection of Stallings Road and US 74 with completion in 2022. And whereas the Stallings Road US 74 intersection is only about 1 mile from the CPCC Levine campus and would make an ideal location for the eastern terminus station of the Lynx Silver Line with easy access to US 74 and supporting a large commuter parking deck. Now therefore be it resolved that the town of Stallings requests that the Metropolitan Transit Commission's MTC locally preferred alternative LPA for the Lynx Silver Line be extended eastward into the town of Stallings, Union County for evaluation of a potential terminus station near the Stallings Road US 74 intersection. Resolution adopted this 28th of January 2019 upon a motion of Councilmember Steele and seconded by Councilmember somebody else, Paxton, by a vote of, I guess I'm three of them. Okay. All in favor?
Ready to vote?
Yep.
All in favor?
I'll vote everybody.
I was just reminiscing in my mind while you were reading that lengthy resolution.
That's a lot of big words. I did use that one you mentioned earlier.
You didn't get $1.
You did a great job.
You didn't get $1 because I had to feed it to you.
Hey, whatever.
I lived in Gwinnett County back in the day, and MARTA, their light rail stopped at the county line and didn't go. And as one of the reasons for us leaving there was the traffic was horrendous. I just double checked it to see if they changed their mind after all these years, and finally have. Their Gwinnett County is voting to, voted to have light rail.
What it costs more.
Did it? I was like, I don't want to mention the number, but dang, if they waited way too long, but we're going forward with it.
Well, I thought it was interesting because some of you will remember, almost exactly 10 years ago, I did a guest column for the Charlotte Observer on supporting the transit coming into Union County. And at that time, there were only 29,000 commuters going into Charlotte from Union County. So in 10 years, that's gone from 29 to 45,000. So, and just thinking too, in terms, David, you and I are charged with kind of setting up an economic development committee and such. We couldn't do anything any better than supporting this light rail as far as economic development for this region, because you see what happened on South End and that.
And North End,
Yeah.
good golly.
Yeah. John Lewis did say at the meeting last week that they are hoping to capture some of the additional tax revenue from the development that has occurred because of the rail line to the north to help fund getting our line built. So, and other projects. So anyway, thank you all for supporting this.
Absolutely.
All right. One more item, item 7B.
Okay, I'm making a motion that we approve the manager's employment agreement, which begins February 5th, 2019, and expires February 5th, 2024.
Are you ready to leave?
Yep.
Oh, I'm so tired. I'm sorry.
I got a lot to discuss on this issue. What's that?
Yeah, we already just.
Oh, all right. Sorry, you guys are ready to go too. Okay, any discussion? No, all right.
I think we discussed it already. All in favor?
Yeah, all in favor? Yeah, I'm tired too.
I think Dave said it. You took the word right out.
All right, one more item on the agenda.
I make a motion to adjourn.
So you.
Yay.
Sorry. All in favor?
That was open.
Yeah, we're fast when it comes to adjourn.
5 o'clock.
In the bottom one on the script.
No, I was telling her I'm probably about 3 o'clock.
Yeah, it was late.
I'll put this in there.